Good morning. I hope you are safe and doing well during these very rough times. My name is Eden. I've been working in the venture space and SME sector in the MENA region for the past 12 years. Now, if you are a venture founder and startup founder or SME founder in the MENA region, chances are investment and fundraising are quite often visiting your thoughts. Now, whether or not you should be fundraising now under the circumstances is something that is debatable, but it's up to you. Let's assume that we already passed that discussion and you decided to fundraise, maybe now, maybe in the future. Where can you find investors who are active under the circumstances? Now, there's been in the past 10 years over 600 investors coming in and out of the investment space in the region. The number is close to 670 something. Now, where can you find all those 600 investors? Then there's plenty. You can find a lot of them actually on Menabytes. They have published or they are curating a listener table of all the investors, and I'm going to share the link to that in the comment section. Make sure to check that out. But do you think of actually going to all 600 investors? Do you think if you actually manage to talk to all of them, you'll find all of them or the majority of them being responsive or discussing term deals with you or doing due diligence with you? If you do the analysis for the investment behavior in the past 10 years in the region, you'll find out that in any given year, there's an average about 70 investors who are active. Not all 600, but there's 70. And those active investors, usually they invest for 1, 2, 3 years and they go inactive or reduce activity very significantly. And then they remain like that for some years and then they start being active again. So this cyclical nature is simply because these investment firms, they don't have unlimited money. The fund managers, they go out there and they raise funds just like you raise funds for your startup. And once when they finish raising the fund, they start deploying it. We call that vintage year, the first year when they finally start deploying the fund. Now, they do that for 2 to 3 years, sometimes 4. And then after that, they invest about 40% in that. And then after that, they reduce their activity in the investment aspect of things, and they work more extensively on managing their portfolio. So they're helping the startups. Actually, I'm reminded with a study that is published by Harvard Business Review. It shows how venture capitalists spend their time. You'll find that the majority are actually trying to service or give service to the portfolio. And the reason is their number one objective for investing in you is to drive in you as efficient and as quickly as possible to the next conversion event, be it an exit, an IPO, an acquisition, or maybe the next investment round. So it is their interest to drive you to that conversion event. And that's why they're spending the majority of the fund and money and time on helping you out to grow. Now, this life cycle and the allocation of effort explains why we find but a few active investors every year, relatively speaking. And it also explains why it's quite a chore sometimes to get them to be responsive with you if you're not a portfolio venture already. Now, we have 600 investors, and we know that there's going to be around 70 of those who are active. How can we shortlist them? This is what we're going to cover today using Crunchbase in a very simple and straightforward process. Now, let's fire up Crunchbase, click on Advanced next to the search bar, and from it select Investors. You'll be brought to the screen. This is the new interface they have, and then click on Try Query Builder. On the left-hand side, scroll down until you reach to Try Query Builder. From it, you'll be brought to the older interface of the search engine. Now, the Query Builder is useful in the level of data granularity that we can expect from it, and we need to shortlist this huge list as much as we can. So we do that by adding investor filters. The very first filter we're going to add is location. Not the location of the investor, but the location of the ventures in which they had invested. We are not looking for bringing new investors in the region, but we're looking for investors who already know the region. And in order for that to happen, we're going to look for any investor who has a portfolio venture that is a MENA venture. So click on investments and then click portfolio organizations. And from it, portfolio organizations again. And from it, click basic info. And from basic info, you can select headquarters location. Location, not regions. And from location, you start entering the names of the countries of interest to you. Select the top countries who represent a region in which your startup operates. So we're talking about mostly GCC and a couple of African nations as well. So we're talking about UAE. Top 9 we have right now in the active ecosystem. We have UAE, we have Saudi, and we have Egypt, Jordan, Oman, Lebanon, Tunisia, and Bahrain. You notice that I'm excluding Kuwait. That's mostly due to the very high self-sufficiency of their ecosystem in there. But at any rate, to attract investors that might be interested in you, we do that after we select all these 8 countries. You click on search, you end up with about 800 results. Now, not all investors would be able to serve all industries. Even though investors are in the innovation business or tech innovation, they are not really keen on trying something new when it comes to investment. And they always prefer to go with the industry in which they have the experience in order for them to deliver the outcome and the return on investment they are promising to their LPs. Now, for that, we need to look for investors who would be interested in your industries. Right? So again, we're going to look at portfolio organizations, and instead of looking at headquarters locations, we're going to look at industry groups. So you can find those, again, investments, then portfolio organizations, then portfolio organizations again, and then basic info, and from it, you sorry, not basic info, industries. Here, industries, from it, select industry groups, not industries. And that's is a bit more detailed, and we're not really looking for that much detail now. So in it, select the industries that best match your startup or your venture. Don't try to be thinking as a maverick that my startup can combine 5-6 industries and it actually cannot be described by one umbrella term for the industry. Try to align with one industry and make all your fundraising approach or your management of your entire investor relations around you position yourself in that industry, because you're going to talk to investors in that industry. So let's say that you are in health tech. You're developing a telemedicine app, for example, something that is more pertinent to the circumstances today. And if you click search now, you'll find out the number goes down logically from 800 all the way down to about 100. So at this level, you might think that 100 is a good shortlist. Go ahead, work with it, but we can go even further in order for you to be more sure. Now, investors, not all of them can deliver the kind of promise that a VC promises you. You've seen how they allocate about 50% in order for them to make sure that their portfolio ventures succeed. Well, if you go to an angel, or if you go to an incubator, if you go to something like that, you wouldn't be able to find that same level of care or same level of value investment. For that, you need to look for investors who might match it. And for it, you just select investor type. You go to investor details, and from investor details, investor type, and in it, start typing the investment firms who are going to be adding value to you, most likely. So we have VCs, right? We can skip individuals, we can skip partners, we can skip, if you want CVC as well, put that, right? If you want private equity, but be careful with that. And If you want accelerator, though, you wouldn't find the same level, but again, it's up to you if you want to add it. Micro VC, of course. Angel group, chances are they're not the same level, but if you want them as well, go ahead. And if you find yourself actually wanting to add also family groups, it's completely up to you. But bear in mind that private equity, family groups, and the investment firms like VCs, all three of them, they require three different approaches in order to work with them in the best way possible. So click on search now, and the number will again go down to a couple of tens. So now we are in the active ones in your industry, but we don't know if they're active yet. So we need an extra level. Now, not all investors invest in all stages. If you are seed stage and you go to Mubadala, for example, or Global Ventures or Endeavor, you wouldn't be finding anyone who's interested in actually having a discussion with you. They wouldn't tell you no, but they will tell you, go and try to hit a certain milestone in order for us to sit down and talk together. For that, let's try to filter the list once more in order to just hit the stage where you are at. So click on investor details and then click on investment stage. In investment stage, you'll find seed and early ventures. So seed and early ventures usually are the ones that you would be interested in. Chances are, if you are already post Series A and you are Series B or above Series B, your connections, your network itself is going to bring you or the new investors to sit down with you, but not a search engine or something like that. Let's say that you are seed stage, right? And let's search 40. All right, okay. Well, we shortlisted 40 who would be interested in working with you in health tech. All right. So the very last thing is the number one insight that we got from today, and that is we're looking for an investor who's actively deploying funds. So we're looking for someone who had announced a deal at least within the past 2 years. So let's say that. Let's select first, show how that is selected. We go to add investor filter, and from it, select investments, and from investments, select investments again, and under investments, select it for a third time, and then you'll find deal info. Select deal info, and then you'll find announced date. Click on it, and then select after in the filtration for the logic itself, and put a date that is, say, post 2018, and click search. Right, so this is your list. Now, a list of 37 investors is much more doable, sensible, and much more meaningful than a list of 600 investors, especially when those 37 investors are already interested in your industry, in your region, and in your stage, and they're going to deliver the value that you would expect for them as investment firms. How can you then action this list? How can you start doing the introduction? Similar to Silicon Valley, cold intros rarely work for an investment firm, especially in a crowded place like this one, where you have a lot of startups, a lot of ventures, a lot of SMEs, all of them competing over the same pool of investment. The rule of Silicon Valley is to do warm intros, and to find a warm intro, you need someone to introduce you to one of the managers at that investment firm, and that can be easily found here as well. You find, for example, in this list, you're interested in Bigo Capital, for example. Let's open that up. I have that prepared here ready. First, you'll find a lot of data points that validate the same points that you have been looking at. For example, their activity rate in the past few years, they've been announcing deals, so they are actively deploying funds. And you'll find the list of the investments, the rounds, the recent ones they have made. And most importantly, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll find number of funds. And you'll find that they had announced that they had raised a new fund on October last year. That means they have dry gunpowder in order for them to invest in new deals. Now, where to find your warm intros? Go to the deals section and click view all. Yeah, these are for all the deals. You can do it this way, or you can do it by clicking on number of investments, this 42, and you'll find all of them there, right? And if you find a deal that has your stage in it, or has a startup that is similar, or in the space where you operate, then click on it. Yeah, telemedicine, for example. Let's say that Visita are working in the same space as you are, all right? So these are the details of the deal itself, but you can click on the startup itself in order for you to find details about the founders. So Ahmed and Amir, and you can find details how to contact the startup, how to contact the founders quite easily if you go through the page itself. So now you just grab the name of the founder and go to LinkedIn if you don't find their email, or go to hunter.io or some of the services that can find out the emails for you and generate leads for you in order for you to start your intro through that person. Now do that with as many as you can, as many investors as you can. Try to warm intro first. If you can't find any warm intro at all, then go to LinkedIn and just try to connect with the investment firm itself, the people in there. And if that doesn't work out for you, then your last approach, the very last one, is going to be, yes, let's try the cold intro. Usually the best way to do warm intro is if you have already an investor on board, that investor is going to make the introduction for you. Even if they don't know that other investor that you are interested in, they will work that out for you. So manage your fundraising as diligently and efficiently as you can to save time, resources, and save you from the emotional impact of having to deal with all those unnecessary rejections. Stay safe and stay responsible.